Hi, this is Ms. Ashton, and I'm going to go over the first steps for our clay project. So here is the picture of the project I want to do. I want to make a kitty cat type bowl. So after I've figured out what picture I want to do and I saved it to my iPad, my next step is I'm going to draw a template. Here my template has the basic shapes of my construction. Where it says mold, that's where we're going to use those bowls that I passed out to use as a base to fill in our clay. I also know I'm going to have to add a coil to make the height a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to have some hand-built pieces such as the tail and the ears. So to get started, our first step is going to be to knead the clay. This step's important because we have to get all the air bubbles out of the clay. If we skip this step, then parts of your piece can break or explode off in the kiln. Right now, this chunk of clay, I can see these kind of holes in here. And the goal of kneading is just to push out any air pockets that could be trapped. So I'm going to start by kneading my clay. I want to press and turn the clay. I don't want to wrap the clay on top of each other because all that would do is create more of an air pocket. So I don't want to fold it over. What I want to do is press and rotate. So I'm going to press and rotate the clay. I can press the clay on top of each other, but I don't want to fold it. And by doing this, I'm starting to get all these little air bubbles out of the clay. And that's really important so your project does not become damaged in the kiln. So skipping this step in the long run can cause you a lot of problems. I'm using the bottom part of my hand where it's poofy by the thumb. I can press using that part of my hand to help me get out those air bubbles. Okay, and I want to keep rotating it and pressing that clay down. Try not to fold it if at all possible to get as much of those air bubbles out as you can. Now, I'm not slamming a rolling pin down on it to try to get those air bubbles out. I'm just pressing. So after about 30 seconds to a minute, I would say you've probably kneaded good enough where I no longer see a bunch of holes in this clay. And then I know I've probably gotten out all those air bubbles. Our clay is fairly new, so we shouldn't have to worry about having clay with a bunch of air bubbles trapped in it. Alright, now my next step is I'm going to want to roll out a slab of clay that's about the thickness of your finger. So I'm going to use a rolling pin, and I don't want to press too hard because then the clay will get stuck to the rolling pin. So I'm going to roll out my slab of clay. Rolling out my slab of clay. And there I pressed a little bit too hard and it started to get stuck. It's really important I make my clay even because we will be using this to fill up our mold. And the more symmetrical we can make it, the better. Okay. Alright. Now we have these bowls. Everybody should have one. And I'm going to press the base of my bowl down. And I'm going to use a wooden dowel rod as a point. And I'm going to just trace around the bottom of that bowl. And you're going to have to press kind of hard. Alright. To make a base shape. Now before I continue, if I use this as a mold just as it is, the clay is going to get stuck to the sides and become very difficult to take out. So I need to take a plastic bag like you'd get at a grocery store, and I'm going to line my bowl with that plastic bag. That's going to be allow me to take my project out once I've started building it. So I'm going to take this piece that I cut out for the bottom, or the base, and attach it inside the bowl. And now I'm going to want to cut pieces out of my slab that I'm going to set inside the bowl to start making the clay walls. So now I'll start shaping it. And I like to fold my clay over the edge because I'm going to cut it and it'll give me a nice straight even edge to work with. Alright, so I'm going to need some more clay to finish filling the inside of my mold. And I always have to knead my clay. So here I'm grabbing more clay and I'm going to press and rotate. Press and rotate. Press and rotate. I'm going to make sure I don't have any big air bubbles in it. Same thing on the back side. Pressing out all those air bubbles. So like right here, if I wouldn't have pressed it, there's an air bubble trapped in there from kneading it. Okay, using that squishy bottom part of my hand. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to roll out a slab again, the thickness of my finger. Cut off that extra piece. And I'm going to finish filling in the inside of my bowl. And it's okay to have it overlap a little bit. Alright, now the inside of your blue bowl is going to look really misshapen. And what we need to do now is with this same day clay, just blend it together. So I'm going to start blending those clay walls together. And by doing that, it's going to make sure I've got one solid piece. By blending it right now too, I'm going to be making sure I don't have air bubbles trapped from the clay being layered on top of each other. Okay. If you've got any thin sides to your clay, because I can tell here's a little bit thin, you can always patch it up with another piece. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off all this extra that's on the top. So I'm going to cut it by just pressing my wooden stick on top of it against the edge of the bowl. So I'm just pressing, and it should cut it nice and straight. So now I've filled up my clay bowl, well, the blue mold with the clay. And now I'm going to just start trying to even out those sides so I can see a couple spots are a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go back in, add some more clay, even it out. And I'm going to just continue to blend and smooth out my clay until I've got a really nice, even mold. And I'm going to use my tool a little bit to help me shape and even this out a bit. And I'm just really working with that clay to even it out. Any thin spots I see, I can take some clay, patch that up. So I've got a thin spot down there. Patch that up. And it's starting to get a nicer shape to it. Alright. Evening out this lip of my bowl around. Make that nice and even. Okay, and now because I used a plastic bag, I would be able to take it out of my mold whenever I need to without it getting stuck. Okay, so this is where you're going to stop from your first step. To review, you have your picture of your project saved to your iPad. You've drawn a template, and now you've filled up your blue bowl so that you have a base of clay for your project. Alright, so now to get ready for cleanup time. Now I've got all these tools and clay and stuff. All clay that we don't use, we're going to put together in one bag. The more clay that's put together at once will retain moisture. And that way, if you need more clay, you can get more clay. If you need less clay, you can return it back to the bag. Okay. One person at your table will be in charge for the tabletop. That includes carrying the boards and putting those away and cleaning off the surface area. Okay. Now to store our projects so they don't dry out, that paper towel that we had at the beginning of class. Alright. You're going to take your paper towel and I'm going to just dunk it into my water container. I don't want it dripping wet to go on my project or it will make my project soggy. So I need to wring it out really good. So my paper towel now shouldn't be dripping wet, it's just damp. I'm going to place the damp paper towel inside of my base. I'm going to cover it up with this grocery bag, and then I'm going to stick my project inside of my Ziploc bag. Alright, once it's inside of my Ziploc bag, then I'm going to store my project in the clay cabinet. So I'm going to carry it and put it inside the cabinet that says clay cabinet for storage. Make sure you pay attention to where you put your project so that you don't accidentally move a bunch of other people's projects finding yours. Alright, at your tables, you'll also have a person that's responsible for washing the tools. So different tools such as rolling pins need to get washed every class. The dowel rods. Any other clay tool that we've been using needs to get washed. And our water containers need to be brought to the sink and rinsed out as well. So that will be another student's job. Floors will be a job where we need to sweep up and make sure we don't have any clay, dust, or particles on the floor at the end of class. So we will go over cleanup procedures, but just before you take your project, make sure you have your damp paper towel. It's in your bag with your name on it, and that you put it in the clay cabinet. All right, enjoy.